my home ec teachers were baffled by me. I still remember the time that I was supposed to make date balls because we were having a parent day. So one of my teachers said, "Brenda, you can grind the dates up. That should be simple enough. Crush them up and grind them and make the date balls, and that's easy." So I did. And she says, "Oh, those look so good." And then she bit into them. And one of them, and she said, "Brenda, you didn't take out the pits?" And I said, "You didn't tell me to do that. You just said to grind them." I was born in Sydney, Nova Scotia. Well, actually, I was adopted, so I had only myself as a child in the family, my adoptive family, but eventually I did find my birth family many, many years later. I learned my birth name, and I ended up meeting my brother and speaking with a sister on the phone, and there's at least one more of us somewhere, and possibly two more, we're not sure, and I was able to eventually find and see my birth mom. So my family is actually a dual family, and my adoptive family are mostly gone now. I have cousins, but I'm more in touch now with the biological family, who have accepted me on both sides, maternal and paternal. Well, I've always been kind of involved in music, especially singing. When I was in high school, I ended up taking voice lessons in lieu of home economics. The school was a little horrified that I would do that, but because they kept saying, "Well, you have to take it," and the answer was no. My mom was a teacher, and she knew what we needed to have for high school graduation, and home ec wasn't one of them. So she said, Brenda can do some other course. She understood home economics was absolutely horrendous for me. I'm still a klutz. I couldn't sew two pieces of cloth together without making a tangled mess. Just one of those things that I'm just not domestic, which is a problem. Sometimes I would love to have been. Cooking I enjoyed, but sewing was horrendous. So I took the art voice, where I was much better suited. So anyway, I ended up going over to Acadia voice department, and I took voice lessons for some time privately. And I also, took oil painting with a lady named Mrs. Neatby in Wolfville, and I loved doing it. I wasn't great at it, but I enjoyed it. So I had this visual urge to see things from my imagination take form on canvas. And then I set it aside because I knew this was not my thing. I was writing poetry when I was in my teens, and I still love to write poetry, some prose as well. I even have a young adult manuscript that I'd written years ago. Oh, theater, yeah. I was in some of Jack Sheriff's plays early on at Acadia. I loved theater, enjoyed singing, and when we moved to Yarmouth, I heard about the Ark, and they were doing The King and I thought, that's a wonderful show. I love this show. I'm going to audition. And I did. And no one knew who I was because I just arrived that year. But I got the role of Anna. Remarkable show. It was a miraculous show. And it introduced me to the Ark. I was involved in other theatrical performances with the drama classes with which I worked. We did shows there. I worked with George Egan in 1987 on the Salutes to Victory series, which was a 3-part series of original musicals. And I'm still writing, still loving poetry, all of that. And then I turned toward night sky photography after that. I got into photography 1980s. I had an old Olympus camera that I liked, and I started to work with that and learned a lot about it, and my husband David was supportive. And then I began to do nature photography, improved the camera collection and got more and more, and started doing close-ups of insects and birds, butterflies, flowers, scenery, all that. It was really quite wonderful, and I still love nature. And then David got very ill, and he had been sick off and on anyway for many years with bouts of colon cancer that recurred. But finally he ended up with ALS. And so when we were in Halifax for his testing. He had to have a final test to prove that he had this. My camera went with me, and I was going to walk in the public gardens. And I left it at the hospital somewhere, and when I got back, it was gone. We looked everywhere, no one could find it, and we assumed someone had walked off with it. Because I was devastated. It was a devastating day anyway, to get a diagnosis like that. And David said, well, you know, I'll split, we'll get you another camera. And they had a second-hand Canon 7D, which to me was the epitome of a very fine camera. And today, you know, it wouldn't be considered quite that state of the art, but for then it was. Second-hand camera with lens, half price, and barely used. And he said, okay, we'll split on this. So I took this camera, and it was a wonderful nature camera, and so was the lens. And that would have been in 2014. My regular astrophotography camera just quit on me now, and I'm using that old 7D. 9 years later, it's still going secondhand. But when David passed away, I needed something to do. I've always loved the night sky, and I thought, I wonder if I could do this. And I joined a little group on Facebook, which is called Astrophotography Nova Scotia. But it has people from all over the world in it. I thought I could do this. Maybe I could learn. And they told me how to focus on the stars, how to get sharp focus because everything was just a blob. And once I learned to do that, I got addicted, and then I began to start doing this. It was very, very motivational to me. Most of the people on it now seem to be into doing deep space objects or deep sky objects. They just call them DSOs. And, you know, planetary nebulas and galaxies and close-ups of all sorts of formations and whatnot. Those techniques I find challenging, and I really like wide field more. And they have those too, but most of them are more into deep space. But they're a wonderful group of people. They're very supportive. If you join that group on Facebook and come in absolutely green and new, they will help you, they'll direct you. And I ended up getting to meet the people from the Nova Scotia group, quite a few of them, and they're now my friends, right? And then Tim Doucette of Deep Sky Eye happened to see my photos on that group, and when he opened his observatory here, I went out to the grand opening. I was really excited to go out there. Eventually, I introduced myself later. He says, oh, Brenda Tate. Oh, I've seen your photos, he said. Why don't you come out sometime? He said, you're local. He said, well, come on out and talk to me. And I met his wife, Amanda, and she said, yeah, you know, Tim probably could use somebody to come out and chat with him. And that's how that started. So we've been friends ever since, and I've been out hanging around at Deep Sky Eye basically ever since, too. So it all clicked in, partly because of that one group on Facebook. I've always been a nocturnal sort of person. I've always loved the night. I chase meteors a lot. I love to get meteors in my shots, but for that you need time lapse. And so you set your camera to just take a photo. Mine are 25-second exposures usually, or 20 depending on the lens, and it just takes photo after photo. Click, 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 until the battery runs out or the memory card is full, and it can go all night. And so I will set that, aim it at a part of the sky where I know there might be a meteor shower in progress. Watch sometimes, see what's there. But the night sky in that spot looks very much the same from one, minute to the next. Then I'll go in, I'll sleep a little, go back out, check the battery, replace it if I need to, stand out there, watch some more, go back to bed. I do that sometimes right until daylight, and then I end up with a lot of overexposed pictures. But I do stay up a lot when I'm traveling and when I'm going to other places. I have to watch for when the Milky Way is going to be up, because early in the spring it's up late. It's up at 1 o'clock or so. You don't get to see it early in the evening. So if I want to go out and take a picture, let's say in May, June at the lighthouse, I might have to wait and go at midnight or 11, and then I'm there. We have Starlight Society here in our area, Starlight Committee for the municipalities of Yarmouth and Clare and Argyll. and their main focus is to preserve the night sky, preserve the darkness of the night sky, and take aim at light pollution. So I'm involved in that. Light pollution destroys the vision of that we have, our night vision. We don't see the night sky, we can't. And also the stars are sort of blotted out by light. The moon, 80% of the population of North America cannot see the Milky Way at night. 80%. We get to see it, but if you go downtown in Yarmouth and you look up, you won't see much of it. If you walk outside and drive a little distance out of town, you start to see it, and by the time you go out to Quinnen, where the observatory is, the sky is incredible. It's jaw-dropping. And people who go out there have come in from, I don't know, Boston or New York or some parts of Europe, are astounded, and they just stop and stare because they said, we've never seen it like this. It's amazing. It's always like that. Yeah, it's always like that. We don't see it, but darkness is necessary for nocturnal flying insects and birds. Many birds migrate at night, and many insects fly at night, and they're food for all sorts of species, right? A lot of mammals forage at night because it's safe under the cover of darkness. And when we destroy the night and disorient them, they can't live as they normally do. It disrupts everything, their biorhythms and everything.
Do you like the process of showing your work, or do you like the process of creation better?
I like creating it because I feel satisfied when I get something I think is good enough. And quite often I don't. I might take 700 images a night on a time lapse and keep 20. But when I get one I'm proud of, that's when I want to show it. So that's when I will share the post maybe on Facebook or wherever. And I like seeing something of mine on a wall and thinking, you know, I really like that. I did that. And I can stare at it and remember when I did it and how I felt. I've had my work at Yarmouth Creatives at the mall. I haven't had anything there lately because I strongly feel that if I'm going to display there, I also had better take my turn at volunteering to man the desk, or woman the desk, or whatever, person the desk. And I'm incredibly shy when it comes to doing that, to working with the public and cash at the same time.
How do you feel about Yarmouth as a creative community in general?
Oh, I think it's wonderful. We have everything here. Anyone who feels the urge to make anything can come here and get on stage or perform music. I felt welcome the moment that I came here and went to the Ark and auditioned for that play. That was my welcome. And I've never felt since then any lessening. In fact, I felt an intensification of the arts here. We have all sorts of musicians who have made their mark and gone out and done wonderful things. We have filmmaking, we have pottery and painting and all sorts of visual arts. Rug hooking, which is an art in itself, and I can't imagine doing that. I'm very clumsy that way. All these things. We're so creative here. And we have dance, acrobatic, gymnastic dance, and then Highland dance, you know, and drumming from the First Nations. We had an evening during the Starlight Festival at the observatory, and a group of children from Acadia First Nation came out with their drums, and it was just gorgeous to listen to. And then we have the mural artist who does downtown, right? And she is incredible. We have so much here. Do not always be disappointed that you can't achieve perfection. The photo that I did, it was a panorama of the Milky Way, and it was one that I hadn't attempted before. It was a new kind of genre, really, to me. And a friend was coming in and looking at it one day, and he was kind of an astrophotographer too. And he noticed a tiny area where two of the frames had not quite meshed, because when you do a panorama of the Milky Way, it's this huge arch. So you have to do upright pictures. So you do one here, and then the next one, and the next one, and the next one, and you get the whole arch in segments, and then you combine and merge all the segments together to make the whole arch. You have to do it that way. And one of those segments had been just a hair off. And he noticed it which I never had. And I looked at it and thought, well, okay, there's an imperfection in this, but then again, it's on my wall, and I'm enjoying it, and everyone likes it. I think we have to sometimes say, you know, every single thing that we try to do in this life has that possibility for a flaw, and that flaws make us who we are, because if we didn't have them, then we would not be human. We wouldn't be fully human, and we couldn't grow either, right? And it's kind of like Leonard Cohen, who talks about the crack in everything. That's where the light gets in, you know? And that really applies. We need to care about the total picture, whether it's a night sky photo that has a little bit of a glitch in one corner, or a human being trying to give a speech where he stumbles over a couple words, or a child writing a test who wanted 100 and gets 98. We shouldn't obsess over the things that we don't get right. We should be happy with the things that we do get right.